Is it too late?
Welcome back to episode 283 of the Tall Boy Radio Podcast. And as we always say, who knows where it goes when the beer flows? Well, that beer has flowed all over my trousers. I just spilt my first one of the night because it's frothed. But we'll put that behind us and we'll move on. We've got an excellent episode for you tonight, something that we don't know much about, which, as we were just explaining to our guest, is almost everything. And here's a man who knows less than everything. And certainly slightly more than nothing. How are you doing, Gazza?
Yeah, I'm good. Even in the world, hope you're all well out there in listener land. Really looking forward to this episode. As we were sort of talking in the green room just before we sort of started, it's something that sort of, you said it fascinated yourself, and certainly for me, it's definitely sort of piqued my interest. And you see people doing this, and I won't give too much away. And you think, I wonder how that works, and I wonder what they can do and what they can't do and stuff. So. Without giving too much away, really looking forward to this. So let's get into it.
Indeed. So, Stephen, did you want to say hello and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're going to be talking about?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having us on, gents. Sometimes it's a pleasure to be able to talk about metal detecting because the missus and kids are never interested. That's one of the. I mean, sometimes they're interested if you find something nice and exciting. Other times they're not,
Yeah.
But it's just a hobby that I've enjoyed for years, and metal detecting it can be an escape as well, because sometimes you can go out for hours and find nothing, but those few hours have been by yourself or just with one person, and it's just always that opportunity to, let's say, uncover history or just find a bit of treasure. That to me, there's different types of detectors. There's treasure hunting ones, there's artifact ones, there's all different types, unbelievably, and some people dig more than others, less than others. But it just depends on those finds. That next find, I mean, sometimes you can be out 20 minutes in the rain, you're tired, all of a sudden that signal, that's the excitement, the blood rushes back, you're loving it again until you dig up a piece of aluminium, and then you go on to the next one.
Yeah, I can imagine. And personally, I certainly know what it's like to have a hobby, which is podcasting, and talk to my wife and kids about and get absolutely nothing but do. So I can appreciate that one. Yeah. So go on then, tell us how you got into metal detecting then in the first place.
I've been thinking about this for a few days, actually, since we first spoke. Well, probably a week or two. There's three things I can narrow it down to. One was when I was younger, probably 10 or 12, my dad, I think we'd watched Indiana Jones and Raiders of the Lost Ark. And he got me a metal detector from one of you boys will remember the shop, Tandy, the electric store.
Yeah, remember it.
Finest electric store of the 90s, 80s/90s.
It was.
And we got the detector home, and I think we went onto the local park and found a 20p coin. And I was happy then. I was, but I never continued. Then again, I used to have this book, and I used to read about Oak Island and mysteries like that, and lost treasure and gold, and and I do watch that Oak Island now and then, but it's not my thing really, because I don't know. There's some things I see on it that aren't right and are right. When you do certain things, like when you're a detectorist, you can see on shows when people are just not using the detector properly, or just just certain things. But so yeah, then after that I got another one when I was with an ex-partner. Spent a few £100 on one, tried it once in a field, didn't do it again. So again, later on in life, I'd say about 7-8 years ago now, I thought I'm going to get back into it. Bought myself a cheap detector off Gumtree, 40 quid. Found silver coins, found old badges, and it just blew me away.
Yeah.
That was just on the beach. Then after that, I treated myself to a bit of a more expensive detector. Started getting permissions on farms. And, you know, some people say when you can go to organised digs and events that you pay 20 quid for a day or 60 quid for a weekend or whatever. And they'll say, oh, there's a Roman road this, there's medieval that, there's pagan this or whatever. And to me, you learn after 7-8 years, that just means absolutely nothing. You know, because you can go there, and I go to a place local to me from the 1600s onwards, up to the 1600s, 1700s, was knee deep in water. I found a hammered coin on one of them fields from the 1200s,
Wow.
you know, and I found other silver different. I found just round the corner from us, the oldest thing I found is a Roman pot mend, which is like a half moon. I'll show you actually. It's from 25 to 120 AD.
Wow.
Dated. And it's just one of those rare finds, because I mean, when I first started detecting it, I got a better detector, a better one. Now I won't change the one I've got because I've got a decent one. But at first it was about, I want to find that gold, I want to find that treasure. It doesn't become that. You have to put the hard work in. There's days when you can go, you can't go. If you've got a family, it's difficult. You've got to, I find with detecting, you've got to spend a decent amount on a detector. We live in the UK, and I made the mistake. The first one I bought wasn't waterproof. So if I'd forgot the cover for it and I'd gone out and it started raining, I was knackered. I mean, it was, I actually tried to hold my jacket over the detector once while reading it, swinging it, and that lasted about 20 seconds.
Yeah.
So
looking like Batman in the field.
Looking unsavoury on the beach. And then I eventually started I went to a farm, and the farmer said to me, he said, oh, I've just put mine in crop. He said, go down the road there. He said, this is the highest point round here. So I went and knocked on the farm, and you boys, the anticipation of when you have to go and ask a farmer who you've never met before about if you can detect on his land. Oh, it's the build up is, honestly, you say, I mean, luckily enough, I went to this first, the second one, and I said to him, I said, sorry to bother you, I said, but your land is the highest point round here. And he said, oh yeah, we used to have boats pull up, and we used to have a railway through here, things like that. And it'd all been drained down. So I got a permission on there, and he had loads of different fields, and I found old silver rings, coins, no gold yet, but buttons, lead musket balls, bag seals, all sorts of a variety. And I still go there now after 6 years, and it'll always pull something up, you know.
Wow.
But then I've got other permissions that are 30 minutes away that are in areas again where I found hammered coins from the 1200s, 1300s, and just different items, silver pieces off pocket watches, old Victorian ones. And if I show you in a bit, honestly, the selection of stuff I've got, and half of it you keep away. But like I say, each time you go out, and it's always nice if, I know, see, with me, I've got a missus and kids. I'm grateful that she lets me go out, to be honest, guys, because it's hard enough. You know, it's like if you've got kids, it can be difficult, and you can't just expect to go out. And so that's why I rarely go out now. You know, probably if I'm lucky, once a fortnight, once a week, because I have to work around that. But I've always got something within half an hour distance where there's a chance of treasure. And I love that thought.
Brilliant.
Going in the field.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I get it. My kids are 8 and 6. You know, part of the reason probably why I have the hobby that I do is so because I don't go out, I can sit in the house and do it. But I'll be honest with you, the idea of getting out and finding a little bit of treasure, and we'd definitely like to see a little bit of that in a little bit. You know, that is really, really tempting. So just then you mentioned your equipment. You know, how much do these things cost? What kind of stuff's out there? And tell us a little bit about the different types. Like you say, you mentioned there that one of them wasn't waterproof. Obviously, in the UK, it rains often enough. We know that that's a hazard.
Yeah. Like I say, I mean, I started with a Quicksilver Bounty Hunter, and that was 40 quid off Gumtree.
Yeah.
And luckily, I used to work with the fella at Marks and Spencer's, so I know he wasn't short of a few quid at the time. So I thought he might be a decent detector, you know. And I went and picked it up, did a bit on the beach, and I found an old Royal Navy pin badge, which I think I've still got somewhere. And I was so intrigued by that because even though it wasn't a coin, it was a nice badge. So then after that, I think I spent 200. The Mine Lab range is called the Mine Lab Vanquish 340. The 440 and the 540 model. And I had one of those. And to be fair, I found my first gold ring with one of them. And I found my first hammered coin, which I've still got, an Elizabeth I penny. I think it's Lizzie first. And other stuff. And then I spent, I think, another 300 on a Vanquish 540, found more stuff. But then I got a bit lucky. I had a bit of a win, so I treated myself to a Deus 2. But that cost me 1,100 quid.
Wow.
That's fully waterproof, fully wireless. Well, I say waterproof. You want it goes to a certain depth water, but then you have to attach your cable. So it comes, at certain depths.
Yeah.
And wireless to me makes a difference because you have a cable that wrap around the coils on some of them, and it can be awkward. That wireless feature just makes a difference. You can also get the headphones. I think I had to pay £110 for my ones, and they're only basic ones, but the wireless Bluetooth, and you can't use any Bluetooth. You have to use their equipment.
Okay.
But it's zero latency Bluetooth. You know what I mean? It is sharp. I've also got some bone conduction headphones. I don't know if you've heard of those. You put them on the side of your face here, and it transmits the sound to your eardrum. So you can actually still hear out your ears.
Oh, okay. Wow.
They're mainly for underwater. To be honest, I bought them when I first bought it, just because I wanted to try that.
Yeah.
I think I've only used them once in 7 years now. They're still about somewhere.
We love gadgets, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I mean, they range from if you go onto the second-hand sites and you find the right ones. I find that when I've gone online looking on, say, Facebook and all that stuff like that, you have to look at the pictures. I mean, some of them have a scratch plate on the bottom of the coil, and it protects the coil so you can still keep it on. It's just a plastic cover.
Yeah.
Well, someone was selling one on there, and they said, "Oh, only used once or twice." And in one of the pictures, I could see the scratch cover, and it was scratched to hell. And I thought, well, but then in another one, someone was selling one that the scratch plate was untouched, and I bought it, and it was cheap, and I got lucky, really. But then, like I said, I spent 1,100 on Deus 2 XB one, and it's just a stunning machine. I've had all sorts with it. It's light as well. I find that the cheaper models, they are, now I look back on it, they are quite heavy, and it makes a difference because you can be swinging that arm and shoulder for 4 to 6 hours.
Yeah.
You also you've got to get a pinpointer. I'd never used to have one when I first started. It's basically a little stick about that long, and then it basically, if you dug a hole out, it pinpoints the signal.
Okay.
So it vibrates and it goes louder and less. It doesn't vibrate once it's at the point, so it helps you pinpoint it. Because if you don't have, honestly, the difference it makes is unreal. But again, you're talking 100 quid upwards there.
Yeah.
You need to get yourself a decent spade, because I've had a few different spades, and to me, I find that the Blackadder spade works a treat. I mean, I've had certain ones that are they look the part, but they can be heavy.
Yeah.
You've got, and you can get stuff where you can strap the spade or whatever to the side of your leg, but I don't. I like that freedom. So it's either carry it on my shoulder or drag along. So I ended up getting this Blackadder one anyway, and it was light and it's good in the ground, and that's what you want. But see, the trouble at the moment is because we've had not much rain, unbelievably. The ground is like concrete, so most detectorists aren't out at the minute. We need that rain. We cry for sun, and then we want it to rain.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I suppose, like I say, it's that fine balance, I suppose, between you don't want it pissing down, because then that's not really much fun. But then again, you don't need the ground to be concrete, because if you do pick something up, you can't get to it. So.
And now he said it doesn't matter what spade you've got, you put it in that ground and it just crumples. Honestly, it's and you don't want to be pulling. So it depends, boys. It depends on how serious you want to take the hobby. Some people say, "Oh, I just want a cheap detector to try the hobby." My advice would be, don't get a cheap detector. You have to spend. If you want to start it and you want to give it a try, I would spend a bit of decent money. Probably, or you've got to be talking. I mean, you can get cheap ones on Amazon. Personally, I wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
You know, when they say, "Oh, it's a King Sung Pao," that's alarm bells to me, and the bright, you know. But that's only because I've been detecting now for a while. So it's finding the right one. I'm saying you probably need to be spending $350 upwards.
Yeah.
I mean, that's for a waterproof model, probably an Xterra Pro, a pinpointer. But you need a spade. You need a carry belt for your hand trowel as well for digging out. Sometimes I've got to take a little bag, because if I want to go out detecting a bit longer, I want to drink, I want to eat. I don't want to have to walk back to the car, waste energy when I could be finding treasure. That's just me, though. You know.
I tell you what, though, it was one of the things I was going to ask you. It was going to be, what do you need any other equipment? And I wasn't expecting it to be quite as much stuff as there was, to be honest with you. Or
Yeah.
you know, as pricey as it was. I guess if you're advising people as well to go out there and buy a slightly more expensive model than maybe you can pick up off Temu, then you're going to be, if it's not for you, there's going to be somebody else you can sell it onto for a good price as well, from the sounds of things.
Yeah, if you get the right decent one, honestly, there's ones at the moment that Mine Lab, again, they've released ones called Xterra Elite and Xterra Pros, and they're about, I think, 300 upwards, but they're fully waterproof. They're a good beginners, I'd say, beginners to moderate detectorist to get you going. Some people choose to keep and use that model because that's all they can afford, and to be honest, it's what you can afford. But it's if you want to try and have a go at the hobby and take it serious. I mean, sometimes we have people that come on the dig. Some fella came and he said, "Oh, I just don't know how to use this detector." He said, "I don't know what to do." He said, "No one's helping me. I've got 2 coins out of my pocket, 1 silver, 1 copper. I bleeped it under the coil." I said, "Can you hear that sound?" He said, "Yeah." I did the other one, the copper one. I said, "You hear that sound?" I said, "When you hear that sound, dig it up." I said, "That's it." I swear to you, boys, I saw him 2 hours later. He was so happy, found loads of coins, buttons, everything. He said, "I listened to what you said." And sometimes it can be simple and people can get that, you know, and that's it, the hook then. But then other people, like, I've tried to take my kids out. I even bought my eldest daughter a detector. She didn't even get it out of the box. My last lasted about 5 minutes.
Really?
Oh, it's a shame.
So, to be honest, though, boys, it's nice to have the peace.
Oh, listen, I get that myself. Don't you worry about that. You know, I love doing, like, I'll set aside a little bit of time to do a little bit of research about every episode that we do, and my wife's good enough to take the kids away from me while I do. And I tell you what, I cherish those times. Drag it out a little bit, if I'm really honest.
Yeah, no, yeah. Would only take about an hour, but it's definitely 2 or 3 hours worth of research there. So
no, I'm not using ChatGPT, I promise.
no, one of the things I was going to ask, and you mentioned it sort of a little early, just in terms of, when you went to the farms and you were asking permissions and stuff. How does it work in terms of, you ask permission from a farmer to go onto his field, or whoever it may be, whether farmer, whoever landowner, and how does it work in terms of then, if you find something, is that, if you excuse the expression, is it finders keepers? Is it do you have to then almost show what it is? Do you have to declare what you found, or is it just a case of into the back pocket, there you go, that's mine, I'm off, see you later, sort of thing? How does that work?
For me, boys, first of all, I find honesty is the best policy. There's too many times on the news when people have found hoards and been put in jail, and they're not just removing the treasure from the ground, they're ruining history as well.
Yeah.
Them hoards and stuff can change, rewrite history. Sometimes Well, with my farmer, when I first went to him, I spoke to him and I said, "Oh, yours is the highest point round here, da 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 da." And just as you get to that point where you have to say, "Would it be okay if I come on here to metal detect?"
Yeah.
And that you think, "Oh, he's going to say no. He's going to say no. He's going to say no." And he went, "Oh yeah, I've got a metal detector myself. I've tried it once or twice. Oh, and it was the first time I got it, and I was so happy,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know." But instantly, I thought, I think that was in July or something, and I thought, "Oh, I'll have a pot of gold by September." 7 years later, still no pot of gold, I'm afraid. But what I did was I had a look online and I found a couple of contracts, and it basically says, you can print them off. There's quite a few on there. It says on it, if I find anything over the value of £100, we will split it equally if we sell it. If it's
Right.
over a certain amount, we have to, and we both had it, we both signed each copy of it, and we both got a copy each.
Right.
But gents, in the 7 years, I've never found anything worth over £100
Okay.
on this farm. You know, I mean, to me, I found coins, but I found old silver bullets from the 1800s, hammered coins, and you know, sometimes money can't buy that. And every time I see him, or he'll come out on the field, I'll show him. I'll say, "Is there anything you want to take?" You know, and I show him at the end, and he said, "Listen, if you ever find anything," he said, "give me a shout. I'll be out with the dig and we'll dig it up."
Wow.
But I've
Yeah,
not needed him to do that yet. Most, you know, but then I've had farmers where you go. One farmer had a battle on his field, had done the research, and really, you need to be face to face with farmers. And I'd always advise take a couple of beers or some wine because it can always go a long way. Some people have it hanging out the pocket so they can just partially see it. Personally, I think that's rude because I don't want them to think they're getting anything before they say no.
Yeah.
You
No.
know,
Exactly.
and then you know if they're genuine. And yeah, I went to one and I rung him, and I wish I'd have seen him face to face because all he could say was, "No, I'm not interested. Sorry, no, no, no." And it's so disheartening, gents, when you know something's on there
Yeah.
and you just can't get near it, you know. But so many fields, when you're driving down the road, every field you look at, you think, "Oh, I bet it's beautiful. I bet there's some treasure in that field." And most of the time, it's not. It's the grass is always greener on the other side, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, but then there's certain times if you find certain an amount of coins or aged coins or over 3 coins now, it has to be declared as a hoard, and the fines liaison officers have to be rung, and you have to you either send it off to them or depending on what you find, whether it'll come in, and then archaeologists will do their magic, and then it gets to a point where a friend of ours, Moss, he found I think 2 silver pots of Roman coins. It's in Wales. He was showing me the other day actually. I think the 2 clay pots, one of them was like a century's Roman wages because they were still in the leather pouches.
Wow.
I know. So I think he had 2 of those, and I think he found 47 silver denarii, old Roman coins. But he's been waiting a few years for the museum because what they have to do, the treasure process can be either quick or long, depending on what you've got and depending on what museums would want to purchase your item, because you could find an amazing gold ring, send it off to the museum to be declared as treasure. But if a museum doesn't want to buy it, they just send it you back and it's yours then.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, like with these 2 silver pots of Roman coins or whatever they are, these waited for ages. They've been x-rayed, cleaned, and then it has to go on to a committee, separate committee, where they value it and whether one museums want to purchase it. And then it's going what agreement you've got with the farmer once you've got the money, split it 50-50, and then everyone's happy.
Right.
Well,
Wow.
I had no idea it was going to be so in depth. Did you?
No, I mean, I should have maybe thought that, there would have to be a process if you found something of value as such. I wondered whether or not there was some sort of commission or somebody that you would have to then declare that to, but I didn't, I didn't realize that, the length of the process, and it just, and one of the questions I was going to ask was actually what does constitute a hoard, and you've just said, was it three coins?
It's over 3 coins. It's only changed recently, and I think it was due to, there's an amazing story. Some fella was detecting, and I think what it was he found a copper chariot in a field somewhere in Sussex or some. Oh, boys, you should have seen it. It was stunning.
Wow.
And because it was made of copper or bronze or brass, whatever,
Yeah.
it wasn't classed as treasure. So he got to sell that privately for, like, I think, £3 million.
Wow.
So the government didn't get a whiff of that. So it changed now. But you see, up in Scotland, apparently it's different there. Where I have an agreement with the farmer to split 50-50, you don't have to do that in Scotland. If I find treasure on a farmer's land, I can keep all the money.
Wow.
And it gets, but I mean, good faith, you'd split it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would. I tell you what, though, the Scottish, they always have the right idea, don't they, when it comes to money? God bless them. There's many a joke about the Scottish, and all of them are true. But now that is incredible. Just, the fact that and that's great advice for anybody out there who's listening to this podcast as well, that if you are going to approach a farmer, do it face to face. That's when you're going to get your best results, especially if you're a fairly affable fella like your good self. You've got that contract there, which you can go online and print off. That's fantastic, isn't it? That's great if you're looking at getting into it, because it's something that I hadn't really considered that you'd necessarily need. I thought it would just be at best a verbal agreement.
But you can sort of understand that, from I say almost from a farmer's point of view, if you were to find something of value, then all of a sudden he's like, no, I didn't give you permission. Like, yeah, you did. And you're like, I fucking didn't. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it's like, into that heat. But if you've got that contract there that you've both signed, you've both agreed to, that says, yeah, if we have got anything, it's a 50-50 straight down the middle, bish, bash, bosh. There you go. You've got that, haven't you? And there's none of that. And you can imagine, as you said, Stephen, up front, straight down the line is the best way to go. But you can imagine there being a couple of unscrupulous people around who might try to take advantage. Yeah, come and detect on my land and this, and then, but I want this, and you're not going to have that, and almost like backtrack on an agreement that they've got, sort of thing. So as you say, it sounds like great advice. Always be upfront, always be honest, get the agreement in place, get it signed, and then there's no comeback either from either side, really.
Yeah, it's a solid bit of advice. That is a solid bit of advice.
Always, though, as well, boys, I'd recommend getting metal detecting insurance from the National Council of Metal Detecting. I think I got mine for 3 years. I can't remember how much it was. Let me have a quick look. And I think I got mine for 5 years. And for 5 years, it's 35 quid. And I know it's a lot of money, but that covers you up to so many millions of pounds. If you dig up the farmer's land and you dig a bomb up and you get blown to pieces, it doesn't cost him anything. He gets his farm fixed for free. You know what I mean? And my missus might get a few quid, but it also covers you on organised digs and events. I go on a few with Detect It Nation, a good friend of ours, Dave Moss, Detect It Nation Facebook group. He was the one that found the hoards. And you browse his page on there. He does organised digs, and my mate at History Hunters UK, Ben, North Yorkshire, a couple of weeks ago, we were blessed enough to go to, he's got field permissions actually around Whitby Abbey. Wow. And boys, it was stunning, honestly, the views in the day. And just to be out on them fields, because there's Viking, I mean, that was around the 600s, Whitby Abbey, if I remember. Yeah. And he's had Viking hack silver off there. He's had gold guineas, some beautiful rings, and it's nice to go to places like that. A few months ago, I went up to Newmarket on land there, and I found a crotal bell 400 years old or so, another hammered coin. It was just unbelievable down there. You've got to get the right permission as well. But if you want to get out detecting and onto farmland, I'd definitely cover yourself with the insurance. The farmers will always, half the time, they're not interested if you've got insurance. Most of the time, my farmer won't take anything off us coin-wise if I get something now and then. But what you do is, every Christmas or whatever, I'll take him a couple of beers.
Yeah.
or I'll take him a wine for the missus. But sometimes you have to deal with another difficult thing is gamekeepers, because you could have permission off a farmer where I have a permission of over 450 acres in an area, and the gamekeeper there does shoots. So I'm not allowed on there 6 months of the year. And he was, when I first met him, he went, "Oh, I told him I'll do this. I'll go and speak to the farmer." I said, "No, listen, don't worry." Because I thought, I don't want to upset him, you know, and I did what he asked. And I waited 6 months, and now we have a decent relationship. And I'll take him beers now and then, because I find now that you have to speak to the gamekeeper and the farmer when it comes to a big permission.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to tread on toes. You need to know when the crops are on, the crops are off. But yeah, definitely get the insurance. It covers for anything then. And it's £8 a year or 35 quid for 5 years. I think I got 3 or 5 years. And most digs, organised digs, they want it.
Yeah.
They'll say, "Oh, we want to see proof of your metal detecting insurance," and just have a little key tag or a card.
That's mad.
Yeah, makes sense.
I hadn't even thought about that either, to be honest. But like you say, when you say it, makes total sense. Same as the contract. Great, another great.
Some parallels as well.
And a good parallel. Yeah, I can well imagine, especially in the UK. God bless it. Yeah. So these organised digs, or the organised sessions that you do when you go detecting, how popular are those? Do you get a lot of people there?
It depends really on the right groups, because to be honest, gents, when I first started detecting, I was quite foolish and thought, "Oh yeah, I'll go on these organised digs, I'll do this, this and this." But even though, don't get me wrong, I found a few bits. After some, I started going, there was more and more people turning up. At one point, I was in a field on a certain group, and there was a detectorist within 10 feet of me in every direction. Over 100 feet. There must have been 60, 70 detectorists around me. Later on, he said, "Oh, there's another field open over there." And don't get me wrong, most digs do this. They'll open a field later on.
Yeah.
Well, I was halfway through another field by that time, surrounded. And I looked up, and before I knew it, there's 75 people on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'd gone out, I'd probably drove for an hour, hour and a half. I'd spent 20 quid getting in the dig, 20 quid on fuel, 30 quid fuel, food, ciggies, other essentials, and got there and done 4 to 6 hours for a 1949 ship halfpenny.
Yeah.
And, you know, you don't know how disappointed, even though, I'd found a coin, and some people would be grateful of that. You just don't want to go all that way. But then other digs I've been to have been absolutely amazing, you know.
Yeah. Like you say,
Where you can go, and there's only a select few, but they know the area, and we've had good finds.
The one, like I say, when I was driving down the M6 the other day and I saw a whole load of people, there was probably about 20 people in a field, and I must admit, I thought, "Oh, that is fantastic." You know what I mean? It's great. You got that community of people. You got someone to chat to while you're doing it. But I guess, you know, like you say, it's more competition for finding.
Well, I'll be like, and I suppose again, it goes back to that catch-22. You, I suppose, yes, if you like not the solitary life as such, but you know, get out there on your own. You know, if I've got another, you know, detectorist like 10 yards away, I'll be like, "Fuck off! This is I'm looking at this bit." You know what I mean? I don't want you fucking find it.
And sometimes, boys, listen, there's detecting etiquette, because you get people. I've had it before, mate. All of a sudden, they'll walk in front of you, and they'll be detecting in the path you're walking. You have to say, "Listen, don't be a bellend here. You need to, you know, step aside." And some people will say, "Oh, sorry." Some people are just ignorant with it, though. But you get some when you go to these digs. And to me, when I go detecting, I take my time, nice and slow. I'm not in a rush. I'm absorbing the atmos, listening to the sounds.
Yeah.
Some of them, they move off the mark like Linford Christie, swinging like Tiger Woods. Honestly, I've never seen anything like it. And they're halfway across the field, and they're just cutting in front of each other. And I think, boys, you just need to relax a bit. But then I've been to other digs where there's only 20, 30 people, and there's loads of fields. So there's plenty for everybody to go round, you know. But yeah, I want to go to the bigger digs. So I rarely go. It's usually I either go to my own permissions or my mates, or on Moss's Detected Nation group.
Yeah.
Because we because he's a good fellow. I've known him for years, and he helped us when I first started off detecting.
Yeah, but I suppose if you've got, I say you've got your history hunters, or you've got your group of people that go, and I suppose if you're all of a similar ilk and you know the etiquette, and you haven't got any bell ends or dickheads that are cutting in front of you and stuff, and I suppose if you've got a group of you that know that, then it might be, it must be quite nice to, go out, do a bit of detectoring, and then, of an evening it's like, oh, what did you find? Did you, particularly if it's a weekend thing, it's like, what did you find? And just swapping stories, and then going back out again the following day and stuff. But knowing that, I say, you haven't got any bell ends, you haven't got any people there that are going to necessarily cut into you or anything like that. So, that sense of community, I suppose, must be nice, only to a point though, because as you said, Ad, it's sort of relatively competitive. It's like, no, I want to find this sort of thing. So,
yeah. So you said earlier as well, then. So you know about this farm where there'd been a battle on it. So you'd done your research, you looked into the history of it. How much of that do you do beforehand? So before you head out to the fields, or you have an idea of places, how much time do you spend researching that kind of stuff? And then when you find something of interest and you're not 100% sure what it is, how much time do you spend looking into it, and how much fun do you take out of that?
Personally, the only reason I found out about that battle was because the first permission I got at that farm, when I spoke to the farmer and said, "You've got the highest land point round here, can I have a look?" He said, "Oh, this farmer I used to know over there, he had a battle on his field." He said, "One of the museum found a chainmail there." And he said, "The two guys disappeared." So I had to go to one farm. It wasn't his farm, it was another farm. And eventually I got him on the phone. But it's farmers can put the phone down. They can say no on the phone. They can ignore an email. They can ignore a text. They ignore Facebook messages. That's why I say always speak to them, face to face.
yeah.
And so that's the only reason I find out about that. I mean, one of my pals, he's quite good with LiDAR, old maps, aerial views, and we could look at a field and it could have holes and lines, and it wouldn't mean anything, but he'll say, "Oh, that's where there used to be an old Roman pool or baths, or there used to be a building there, and that's a trackway through this." And it's got to the point though where, I mean, I've even detected in a medieval ditch. It must have been at least 3 foot above me, but I didn't find anything in there. I
Yeah.
wanted to,
Yeah.
desperately anything.
Yeah.
But I just didn't. But I'd had other finds on the fields with the hammered coins, and one of my pals come with me once, and I made a mistake actually. I went, "Oh yeah, Steve, come and have a look at this. Come and have a look at this." And as he was walking over to me, he was detecting. And just as he stood in front of me about 100 feet, he goes, "Oh, got a signal here." Digs it. Oh, he pulls out half gold sovereign out of the ground, right in my path, 100 feet away. Good.
Yeah,
He started doing the gold dance, and I wish I'd have recorded it because it's the worst thing I ever saw.
I just imagine him like in front of you going, like,
I know. So, I'd not found any gold there at all, but I'd found loads of silver, and all sorts. But I was just happy he'd found it, really, because I knew there was, it was nice to know that there was gold on there.
Wow.
Because it's rare that you see it come up. They reckon that you find gold once every 7 years. I found mine about 6 years ago. I've only found one, and that was a gold ring, and that was on a new permission, first signal, 5 feet away from where I was stood, and the farmer was still showing me the new permission.
Wow.
Gold ring pulled up, and I offered it him, but he didn't take it, so I've still got it in my display cabinet.
Oh, fair play.
Brilliant.
So most of my friends can help me with that research because they know LiDAR, they know history. Some of them are really good. I'm not good like that. I'm rubbish.
Yeah.
To me, it's just all I think is I'll go anywhere for any farm, any field, because I know for thousands of years people have traipsed the earth, and someone will have always walked over that, and someone will have always dropped something. I mean, I've been to places down a road where it's just a little field where there's a dog path through it. Was almost a medieval market. I mean, we were finding silvers after silvers, brooches, little dagger sheath thing, all sorts. Some of the stuff we found was just amazing. And you wouldn't think, most of the time it's just a field that dogs and people walk through.
Wow.
Do you ever find anything a bit more modern then? Stuff that people have dropped that's actually worth something that's, maybe a couple of years old?
I found a Christian Dior earring once. It was 130 quid for the pair. So, and like I say, I don't really go modern because it's more the permissions I ever see. I don't like to detect the beach. I used to, but it's just, people think, oh yeah, the beach, people dropping rings, money, this, it's just not. The beach is trashy, stuff gets buried. You're not allowed in where I live in Southport and Formby, you're not allowed in certain parts of the sand dunes due to specific science interest, which is, and the only reason I found out about this is I didn't know about this when I first started detecting. I had a little detect in the sand dunes because I didn't know, I'll be honest, boys. And when I dug a hole out, it was about a foot in, there was a little natterjack toad inside, and it was keeping cool because it was a hot day, and I thought that's why it's protected. So from then on, it's just the flat plains of the beach. There's actually parts called, I think it's the Crown Estate, where you're not allowed to detect. You can view them online, what beaches and what parts of the beach you're allowed to detect, and what's the Queen's Estate or Crown's Estate, whatever. And it's, I'm more farms for older stuff. I found quids, 2 quids, 50s, the usual, the odd earring, not as much vapes because they're mainly on the beach, but mine's mainly coins, musket balls. Most recent find was it doesn't look much, but the silver trim off a Victorian pocket watch.
Wow.
Had the maker's mark inside, but I found backs of pocket watches with the stamp on them, found other bits of random silver. And I tell you what, when I found walking cane silver, when I found it on this field, it was a public path walk through. If you'd have seen it, guys, unless you know what detecting and what to look for, you'd have thought it was a piece of tin foil.
Right.
It wasn't. I could see the purple and the dark black on it where the silver had tarnished.
Yeah.
I got it, and honestly, it was only a small piece. I'll show it you. I cleaned it up, full hallmarks, 1860 or 1850, and I thought, can't believe it's just been lying there, and people have been walking past it.
Wow. But again, that's history, isn't it? And you say
every find has got a story, but it's just it's whether you can research into that story.
Yeah, and it's weird because again, one of the things I was going to ask, because I can't remember how it was found, but obviously you've got, was it Leicester or Nottingham? You got, was it King Richard or whatever it was, or was it found in like a car park?
Leicester.
Was it found in like a car park or something? It's like, how is that discovered? Like, and that was obviously like a huge, great big thing. And it's like, was that a detectorist? Was that somebody that's just beeped and then found something, and then they found a bit more, and then they found a bit more, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, this proper is history sort of thing. And I suppose it's that, what if the next find is something that maybe would be the attraction for me, and it's like, the next big thing sort of thing, and it's like, am I going to find Lord Lucan or whatever? I don't know. Yeah, but it's that next big, like, oh my God, what's discovered next sort of thing, that buzz that sort of keeps you going back, I suppose.
Honestly, boys, that hit. Honestly, you just, and as soon as you get that signal, you think, "Come on, this is it.
This is the one."
But
this is the one.
Got to the point where you think, "I'd be quite happy with silver, or I'll just be happy with a coin," because you could have been out for 2 hours and all you've done is lead and aluminium, and you don't know how good they sound. Because detecting for me, it's now you have numbers on the display that signify what the signal could be.
Right. Okay.
I've learned after years, I don't do that anymore. It's the sound. I listen to the sound. If it sounds clear and I go around it in 3 or 4 different directions and it sounds clear, sometimes if it still sounds clear, but a tiny bit scratchy, and what I mean by scratchy is you'll get a nice high clear sound, but then there might be a little a little low buzz. But that could mean your gold coin is sat next to an iron nail.
Yeah.
So you still have to dig that. But like the rules say, not the rules, but 95% of the time, it's 95% rubbish, 5% treasure. That's our ratio in detecting.
Yeah.
And it depends on the days you go out, on the day you have.
Yeah. Well, just what you mentioned there, your gold coin could be next to an iron nail or whatever, and you mentioned that. So again, excuse my ignorance, but the detectors, are they so fine, or are they so sort of high technology that they give off a different? Is it a different sound depending on the type of metal that potentially is there? Like, what's the range? Because obviously everybody says metal detectors, but then you've been talking about lead, and you've been talking about bronze, you've been talking about copper, and what's the range of materials that perhaps the main detectors would detect? And then, do you know by the sound of what picks up as to what type of metal it is?
Yeah, but just before we get into that, the trouble is with that, you get iron signals that sound horrible and grunty, but it could be an iron cannonball.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But what you usually do is you're getting different sounds, low sounds, grunting sounds. They actually some call it the Suttian sweep, because that's what it sounds like. Or it sounds like R2D2 and C3PO.
Right. Yeah.
And you distinguish between the sounds. Iron sounds are low and they grunt. They actually sound like a Dalek.
Okay.
Aluminium cans can be too overpowering, but a small piece of aluminium comes in the same sound as a gold ring.
Right. Okay.
A piece of lead sounds like silver or a gold ring, the clear sounds that you would dig, But then other times you'll get those clear sounds, but with a little grunt. But
Yeah.
that could also be because it's a gold ring, because there's a hole in the center. Sometimes you get coins with holes in them and it gives a different sound.
Right.
When I've had to go and find stuff for people, I'm a big Man United fan, by the way, I just thought I'd point that out. I had to go and find this LFC earring for this woman. I couldn't believe it. Well, I had no bias, you know what I mean? I thought, I'll help the needy. And it was an LFC Liver Bird earring. So when I took my detector, she still had the other one. So I went over it with my detector, and how I expected it to sound was not how I expected it to sound. If you get me, I thought it would sound clear and loud, and it didn't. It sounded low and a bit grunty. That's because 9-carat gold, 18-carat, 22, 24 all give different sounds.
I thought you were going to say it sounds a bit grunty because it's from Liverpool, which I was about to say. I absolutely agree with you, being an Everton fan, but there we go.
I was funny, but I didn't want to upset the. I didn't want to upset the punters.
Don't worry about upsetting the Liverpool fans. We do that regularly on this podcast, so you don't have to worry about that, mate, at all.
Happy to do it.
No, that's great news.
It's just gone up a notch, this podcast. Now we found a common hatred of Liverpool. It's brilliant.
That's cool, dude. So I'll be definitely interested. And to be fair, it amazes me some of the stuff that you've told me that you found, that none of that's worth over 100 quid.
Yeah,
that's mad. That I'll be interested to.
Yeah, and I've found loads. The only thing I've ever had of value really was a friend of mine took us out on his permission, and I found a Gothic florin, and the rare, but not that rare.
Yeah,
but was in beautiful condition. And I've made the mistake a few times when I found coins, silver coins, cleaning them up.
Yeah.
I mean, and I look back now, every coin I get now, I'll scrape the rubbish off, but I won't polish the tarnish out of it, because if that hammered coin's been in the ground 800 years, I'm wiping the tarnish off it in the history just to see it. That puts value to it. Well, this Gothic florin was probably it wasn't that rare, but I think I sold it to some woman. She really wanted it, and it was in really good condition. But I didn't find that with him. I think I got 200 for that.
Right.
But I've had a friend come round, and he bought a few coins off us. But when I took them out of my display cabinet, it was all when I'd sold them to him and he left. I know it sounds funny, but I felt like someone had just walked over my grave, like the history that I'd found and put the effort in was leaving the door.
Yeah.
So I've vowed now never to sell anything again.
I can understand.
Never.
Guys, yeah, I just want to keep everything, you know.
So you go out tomorrow and you've discovered this great big hoard and this, that, and the other. Is that it? Then it's yours. You're not going to sell it, or
No, you have to hand that in. You know, you have
Right.
to get the museum down and do that, because what'll happen is you just get rumbled. I mean, you
Yeah.
couldn't. It's not like all of a sudden. I know people in the antiques business that'll buy Roman or Viking coins that are gold, because
Yeah.
they'll just ring the police. You get all your gear taken off you, all your fines, prison sentence.
Yeah.
And again, like I say, you're missing out history. So certain things, I mean, if I found a gold ring that was medieval, I'd send off to the museum like anything, because it's the safest way. But besides, they had that problem, didn't they? Did you hear about that? I think it was one of the museums in, I could be wrong, boys, somewhere down south or in Wales or somewhere. Someone had been, when you send your fines in, someone had been stealing the fines that the museum held.
Right.
And there was a big police case on it and stuff like that. So it was whether people then wanted to send the fines off to museums,
Yeah.
to be valued.
Do you have to then? So obviously you mentioned about the hoard. Effectively, is that the legality of it? Is that if you find what would be classed as a hoard, so 3 or more coins, do you have to send that off? Then do you have to declare that, or is that effectively up to you?
Yeah, but yeah, you have to. I
You have to.
mean, yeah, any dig. I mean, it's the right. I know I keep saying it, but it's the right thing to do as well. You know, that honesty. I mean, that one mistake could just cost you. But then there's also, it's just, I mean, it goes by age, the type of metal, the rarity of it. So you could find 3 hammered coins, and that could be classed as a hoard.
Yeah.
But then they'll just send you them back, and then
Yeah.
you keep them, display them. But if you found a hoard of like 10,000 gold coins from whenever, they'd go into the museum. They'd probably keep them for years, and someone would buy those, and then you just get money for them. You wouldn't have a choice to keep them.
Do the museums buy them off you, or effectively do the museums take them on the
I think they're offered.
Yeah, if somebody privately then comes to buy them, then you get that.
I think it's the museums get offered them first, and if any big museums want to buy them, they buy them off you. I'm not 100%, but I'm sure that's it. And if they don't, and you get them sent back, then you sell it to a private seller, and you get all the dosh.
Right, nice. So go on then. Tell us some about the most interesting things then that you found.
Like I said, I mean, I found the Roman potman 25 to 120 AD. I mean, if you think about it, it's only 25 years after Christ died.
Yeah.
Or, believe that.
That's mad. That is, if you believe that, yeah.
Different
podcast.
I also found a buckle once when I was detecting, and it was still in the tree root had grown round it. And I just dug the tree root out with the buckle still in it. I've still got it, actually.
If you want to show us these items,
I was going to say, yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to see some of them. Yeah.
Let me just plug this in.
Don't break anything.
I'm trying to think the best way to show you on the camera without me going backwards.
Oh, wow.
Oh, God, wow. Look at that.
I mean, on this top shelf, we've got hammered silver coins, we've got shillings, crotal bells, Victorian silver thimble. We've got a Viking gaming piece there, that round one in the centre. That's the potman from 25 to 120 AD. I'm delicate with this because it's quite heavy. As you can see, it's like
oh, wow. Jeez.
Pretty thick and heavy.
Yeah.
So if that was the whole piece, I mean, I'm assuming that that would be something that potentially the museum might be interested in.
I've given it to them to look, but they weren't interested because it's basically a Roman bucket leg, you know.
Right, okay, yeah.
I've got what else have I got? See, I don't know if you can see this at the front here. It's a Roman hairpin.
Oh wow, yeah,
Oh,
look
yeah.
at that, yeah. Jesus.
Next to it's me. That's the first gold ring I found.
Oh, wow.
That's incredible.
This one's a medieval jetton, 1500s or so. A medieval key next to it.
Dude, that's quite a collection.
It makes you sort of think that, you found that coin there, that, the medieval coin or whatever, and you think, well, next to that, there must be something else or something else or something else. And you
And the
sort of,
was, yeah, honestly, boys, I've got this crotal bell here. It's not rung for probably 300-400 years until I cleaned the mud out of it. It's
No
rare to
way.
find it in good condition, yeah. That sound, honestly, that's something else,
Wow.
Then on the next shelf, we've got all the parts of scrap silver, or coins that are partially unidentified. Some Victorian stuff. I'll show the back of this pocket. What if you can see that?
Oh yeah. Oh wow.
Oh, but I could find that. I don't think I'd know what that was.
No, I'd be like, oh, just a scrap bit of what. Was there something to what? As we look there, is that your knife, or was that a bit of a knife, or what was that there? Was that
That one.
yeah?
A silver knife.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's cool.
Jeez. You see, some people just look at it and go, yeah.
Yeah, half the time
my
you
God.
would, but you have to
Look at what it
recognise
is. Yeah.
recognise that tarnish,
That is quite a collection. Like you say, not hearing that bell ring that's not rang for hundreds of years for the first time.
That's incredible.
Yeah, and it's not just that.
Exactly.
Just some of the coins to know that you're the first person to hold that for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And how it was dropped. One of my friends sent me here I don't know if you can see that. It's a Neolithic axe head that was dated by the museum from 3500 to 2100 BC.
Oh my
Got the
Jeez.
paperwork there behind.
You see, that must be pretty cool to say that actually that has been, well, it's carbon dated, but that has been dated by a museum and it is genuinely this old. You're like, Jesus, that's...
Yeah, I know. That's the buckle.
Oh yeah, I can see that.
The
Yeah.
tree root.
Yeah, it'd be a shame to take out that route. That's cool.
Old Viking strap and got this game called Knuckles here. I found these. There's another two colours. It's a Victorian game. I found these over all different farms all over England. Just trying to find, I think, the red and the yellow.
Oh
Wow. That's mint. That is.
Yeah, quite a few other. This, I don't know if it was a little curse bottle or something inside it.
Oh wow.
Sealed lid. So yeah, there's still got a few boxes of stuff tucked away.
That's a good collection as well for 7 years. How often do you get out then?
I used to go out quite a lot. Well, I say quite a lot, probably once every week or once or twice a week if I could. Because when I first started, I think I only had one child then.
Yeah.
Now I'm up to 4, so time's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
It sounds
If I spent more time detecting, I'd probably have had less kids.
I know people say, bloody hell, buy a TV or whatever. It's like, go and buy a metal detector, get yourself out.
Yeah. So yeah, the collection of certain things I've kept. I mean, there's certain standards I won't. One of the nicest, weirdest finds I've had, it was a Titanic uniform button.
Really?
Yeah, I sent it to a friend of mine in America because they don't find much in the UK, and I found the odd silver coin from America that's quite rare, but the Americans, I know quite a few on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's a struggle that they're happy with an 1870s button or 1870s coin, where we can find that just on the farm. We're looking for our history is so much deeper, and it's a shame. And it's good when they come over. I took a gentleman on Facebook. George, his name is. He just put on the group, "Oh, I'm coming over from Canada or whatever. I've never been out detecting. I'm staying at my nephew's." I went, "All right, come out with us then." And he went out of his way, spent about 60 quid on a taxi from Liverpool. He came over and we spent the day detecting. And I let him use the detector, because he said, "Oh, I just love it." He said, "I'm so excited. I'm so happy that he got us out." and he found a silver bracelet, and it was like horses, a horse charm one. And he was so happy that he'd found it, and he said, "Oh, I'm so grateful." And he got it fixed in America and gave it to his missus and showed me that his missus wears it. He absolutely loved coming over.
Oh,
Nice to do that as well. But you see, you mentioned before, it can be detected competitive. Sorry. Detecting can be competitive when you go to these digs, but when you go away, again, there's a few people I've met off TikTok. We go for a weekend at Whitby Abbey, and there's 10 of us.
Yeah.
Because you can all go out any time, any hour of the night and do what you want. There's no competitive there. Everyone's happy in your small group.
Yeah.
You know, and you come back afterwards, and when you found something, everyone's dead happy for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, you go to these digs and people hear them saying, "Oh, I haven't found sod all. Some fella found this. What a load of shite. Da 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 da." It's not about that. It's about meeting those people. We've all come together with detecting, but having a good time. Few barbecues, tenting over in a field somewhere, and then just out enjoying. You know that's good. I really enjoy that.
No, that is cool. So then, just out of interest, then, what other than maybe that pot of gold that you'd love to find, and what we all love to find, that what's the one thing that you really, really, really like to find when you're out searching?
You'd probably laugh at this, but something like a gold goblet.
Yeah.
This maybe Viking or something. I mean, there was a Viking hoard found in Dunbar, I think, or somewhere like that. And some of the stuff that was found was amazing. There was a Thor's hammer in there, one of the only ones to ever have been found. The crosses, it was absolutely beautiful. Just anything like that, or perhaps a gold hammered coin, because the detail on them just looks stunning. Something rare, something that stands out that you could put in a museum. And sometimes it doesn't matter about value or money because you found that,
Correct. Yeah.
And it's something stunning.
Just thinking, sort of, you look at the UK and you look at the northeast and you look at like Northumberland and all where around Whitby is, and that coast would be the Scandinavian, effectively, the Vikings and all those the armies and the hordes come over, and that
brothers of the monastery there got slayed by the Vikings in those fields we were in.
Yeah. So it's only a matter of time then before one of you or you go over for a weekend in, Whitby Abbey and stuff, and you think, right, here we go. It's only a matter of time before somebody finds something.
You just have to keep going.
Yeah.
It's funny, like I said, when I first started detecting, I was thinking I was going to find a gold hoard within the first 3 weeks. I wouldn't have to work again. Tell work to stick it. And like I said, 8 years later, I'm still going. But that's because you just have to put that hard work in. You just got to get lucky. Sometimes it doesn't matter what detector you've got. If you go over it, you've got to go over it first to find it. You've got to get that signal. But obviously, like I said, it helps with the better equipment and stuff. But yeah, it's definitely enjoyable, gents.
Yeah.
You just keep going. It's just nice to get out. You can just do your own thing. Like I say, you're waiting for that signal. Sometimes you say, I've got one permission that's right next to a motorway. I've got one that's right next to a railway. I've got ones in the middle of nowhere where there's no cars. There's virtually no planes. There's no one, and it's just nature.
Yeah. Just be out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just quiet, and it's away from the humdrum. And it gets to the point now, it's just an added bonus. There's no point in going out for luck for it now. If you find it, you find it. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't,
Is there a dream location you'd like to visit and do your detecting?
I wouldn't mind going. Probably not a dream one, but there's a place by ours called Meals Hall in Southport. And I think it's 1500s or so there. And I'd love to go on those grounds, but I've tried to ask for permission. They just don't allow people on. I wouldn't mind. 90% of the time, the gates are closed.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it'd just be nice to be able to get on there because I know around that area, around that manor, I know there'll be stuff there. And it's a shame that they're just leaving stuff. I know I say it it's a shame that they're leaving stuff in the ground. I mean, that, simple finds. I mean, that could, if it come to it, it could even boost the haul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could take the finds, put them on display, because I just know there's going to be stuff there, but you just can't get access. But you get these horrible people that do night hawking. I don't know if you've heard of it.
No.
It's basically people going out detecting in farmers' fields that they haven't got permission to, digging holes up, digging treasure and disappearing. That's how them fellas that got done with the hoards recently got so many years. They were doing that round certain areas that you weren't allowed to. And people have been caught on this meals hall, which spoils it for everyone else. You just want that chance, but there's them greedy people.
Yeah, I suppose
So
you look at it, the ideal places in the UK, and I'm just off the top of my head, my history knowledge is pretty shit. But you look at places like Chester, York, Lincoln, maybe, and you think those Roman cities that you think would be
Lincoln, Sussex, places like that down south where all the Roman forts. I mean, you can look online on LiDAR and it shows you where all medieval, Roman, Neolithic settlements all were everywhere.
Yeah, and I suppose going to them and getting permission or going on a dig and finding it or whatever it may that must be like I suppose the gold standard, the gold star. You just think, wow, that'd be amazing to do that.
But again, boys, I've been on these digs. And I've been all the way up to Scotland with this group. And even though it was nice to see my group of people there and meet a few people, the dig was shite. I mean, we spent 2 days there. And I must have gone through this field for 6 hours and my arm was going to draw. There was absolutely sod all.
Nothing there. Oh,
I mean, look, I was with my mate, Jammy Bastard, found a silver denari about 20 feet away from me. And he was moaning. I said, fucking hell. So I found half penny. You find a silver denari and you're moaning. But then they opened this field the next day. I tell you what, it looked like a scene from Tremors. There was hills and mounds stripped all the way along. So you had to walk bow-legged, trying to swing the detector. And there was people it was ridiculous, honestly. And even though it was nice to meet the people, it was nice to be up in Scotland. I like to go for finds. I want to find stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it was a dig. And I mean, I've been Scotland, I've been Newmarket, Wales, although I don't have much luck in Wales. Everyone else seems to, but I don't.
You?
So usually I just end up sticking with my own permissions because I've got that many now.
Yeah.
I probably find the same stuff on that permission eventually. Not all the time, because there's certain places that they find Roman fibulas and, anything like that. But you just got to get lucky.
Yeah.
One last question then for me before we go. So we normally wrap these things up around about the hour mark. The Detectorist TV show. You big fan of that? And how many people has that brought to the hobby?
For some reason, I thought you'd ask me that. I personally have not watched it. And the reason I say that is because, to me, and I'm going to be wrong about this, but I think they're taking the piss out of detectorists. And it's two clowns that find a hoard. And I think maybe it's just me, but I think it's a bit of an insult to detectorists. Even though I know loads of other detectorists who absolutely love it and piss themselves and say it's a great show. Maybe I should watch it and stop being a miserable ass. but it's like I find that most, when they try and do anything which involves British people doing anything detecting, the guys, I mean, I don't expect them to be big muscly Jack Reacher detectors. But again, I think it's like almost mocking the detectorists.
Right, okay, like the stereotypical sort of detectors and stuff.
And I tell you what, some of the peeps I've seen 80-year-old fellas look like they're dressed, and I tell you what, you wouldn't think they're detecting. One of them, he looked like he was off to Ukraine. He had black, white, grey camo on. You couldn't see from his neck down because the camo just dissolved him. He had more utility belts than Spider-Man and backpacks, and he could hardly walk. but he was out doing it.
Hey, if I'm 18, I'm able to do that.
Amen.
Then, hey, amen to that, brother.
Amen.
Yeah.
Cool. So we're around about the hour mark, guys. That's why we normally wrap things up. You got any final questions before we do?
No final questions. Just, I find it fascinating. I say right at the start of the episode, I was, not really sure. Thought I had a bit of an idea, maybe what it's like. Absolutely blown out the water in terms of the sort of the level of intricacy, the level of, I suppose, legality, etc., etc. So, I just want to say, Stephen, I massively appreciate you coming on. Thanks very much for sharing your stories, sharing your interest, and one of the reasons that we do the podcast, myself and Ad, we speak a lot, and it's to learn things, and we do it to try to educate ourselves and try to educate our listeners and stuff, and I definitely get the sense that our listeners have been educated after tonight. There's been some solid advice if you want to take up the hobby, etc., etc. But just listening to your story, Stephen, honestly, it's been incredible. I love chatting, love listening to it. Look, we'd love, if you were to find something, we'd love to have you on again. Come 6 months, 12 months time, if you're still doing it, just hook up again with us and just sort of, I've found this, kind of come back on. It'd be a privilege for us to have you on again. If there's a couple of others, if we want to do sort of a shared podcast with a couple of other people from your group, etc., etc., hit us up. We'd love to have you back on again because it genuinely it's been incredible.
Definitely.
Thanks, honestly, boys. Thanks for having us on. At first, I thought, well, I have enough to talk about. I mean, I hope I've given a bit of good enough advice, and it's nice to chat about it and get a bit off the chest that the missus and kids haven't listened to for the last 6 years. Even though I love them to bits, but if it helps, thanks for having us there, guys. And if it helps someone, and anything, and hopefully when I find a big horde, we'll get back on and we can show it you.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah. No, I think it will. Like you say, you give us some sound advice, and like Gaz says, we like to find out a little bit about something that we don't know a lot about. And I've learned a bit tonight, even just like Gaz says, the legalities of it and just stuff that I hadn't even thought
like a
about.
contract, it just never even crossed my mind that there would be one, that sort of stuff. So yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. So thank you very much for joining us. Like I say, as Gaz said, we'd love to have you back on. A, if you find something, or B, if you just want to come back on and talk about something else, drop us a message. You've got me on Facebook, so you can just message me anytime. We'd love to have you back on. And who knows? We might even do an outside broadcast.
Yeah, and look, it's one of the things we've always said. We want to try and do a couple more outside broadcasts. So who knows? Maybe we can join somebody somewhere sometime on do some metal detecting, and me and Ad are always up for harebrained.
Always welcome out with me, brothers. Always welcome anywhere.
We'll chuck a tent in a field and we'll go. I don't know, have a crappy barbecue breakfast in the morning or whatever it may be. But yeah, we're always on harebrained schemes and stuff. So
and we'll definitely bring some beer.
And we can do that. We can definitely bring some beer. So that's always a bonus.
Well, Stephen, thank you very much for joining us, and we will join you next time when we'll be talking about something entirely different altogether. Take care.